Tonight we're going to be continuing along, picking up where David left off. Of course, he opened up chapter 6 for us. And chapter 6, we're in the acceptance unit, and we like to address this at the beginning of every class to remind everyone that this is the second unit of 5 in our junior high series, the first one being the character unit. And those classes are they've already been taught, and they're uploaded there to Facebook if you're watching via Facebook. And you can go back and watch all of those classes starting back just over a year ago. We began to do this due to what we see in society with the social distancing and so forth. We went ahead and created this, and we've had a huge response all around the world. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware that you can download our books right off of the Facebook page, and you'll see the download for the character unit, and you'll see that tab to drop down the tab itself, and then you'll find the acceptance unit. And that's what we're in tonight, which is once again the second of 5, first being the character, the second being the acceptance, and then the third will be the self-control unit we'll get into next. And of course we'll finish it up with respect and responsibility for the junior high series. But once again, please feel free to download those, make copies of them, pass them out, get involved. And you would really want to have these. What we put up there is the teacher's manual. We do have students and teacher's manuals. And of course, the certification course requires you to have a teacher's manual because there's a lot of information that's put into the teacher's manuals that you will not find in the students. So please feel free to download those. That way you will have them. And if you have any questions, please send your questions in. You can either send them in through Facebook or you can email them in to info@peacefulsolution.org. And we would love to have your questions, and we will be more than glad to assist you. So once again, picking back up where David left off, if you'll be turning over into your teacher's manuals to LP6A, and of course, if you've been with us, you're familiar with the 6A would mean the first part of the lesson plan. It's the first gray tab page of chapter 6. And David covered this last class, so once again, I would refer back to last class for some in-depth information on this. We're just going to briefly review some things, and then we're going to move forward into the lesson plan. And of course, the lesson of chapter 6 is reach for your goals. And remember, we're building off of chapter 5, which was there's a purpose to it all, and we're going to tie some of those things in tonight as we move forward. If you've been with us or you're just now joining us, you'll learn or you'll see, if you haven't already, that the peaceful solution is like building a puzzle. Some people compare it to building a house, but it's one piece built upon another, or one piece fastening together to another to create a picture that we can see. And just like a puzzle, when you start putting those pieces together, the more pieces you put into the puzzle, and of course they have to go into the right spot. That's why we recommend very strongly that these books are taught in the order. The information is given in the order in which the author, Yisra Hawkins, intended for it to be presented. But as you put this puzzle together, more and more of the picture comes into view. And of course, once you're done, all your hard work, you can see what you've created. Well, with character education, you create something that can last not only you, your family, but also your community, society as a whole for a lifetime. So starting off here, once again, this is the note to the teacher, and it says some people have the innate ability to set goals and to achieve them. Innate has the natural ability. Others might be taught the value of setting their minds in advance to achieve a particular objective and to do everything within their power to accomplish that end. The ability to set goals and to work to accomplish them builds character and self-worth. For this reason, goal setting must be taught as a part of acceptance. And notice it must be taught. And you're talking about here when we're setting our mind in advance, where we just read through that. If you're not familiar with what that is, you can refer back to page 80 of the character unit. But that lets us prepare our minds for what's coming. And of course, that comes with education. That comes with getting to know, making yourself aware of things that can take place, situations that might arise. It's kind of like when you're going into a situation, say a student coming to school, and they realize they've left their assignment at home, and they didn't bring it to school with them. And of course, they had a deadline. The teacher expects them to make their deadline. They were told numerous times, And let's say you took it home with all intent and you actually put forth the effort of doing your very best, but when the time came to turn it in, well, you didn't have it. You left it at home. You forgot it. Well, those kind of things that take place in our lives, those are setbacks, but setting your mind in advance is once you realize you don't have it, what do? And I can tell you through situations I went through as a young man growing up and going to school, you can very quickly ask your teacher, can I call my parents so they can bring it to me? That's one thing you can do that will help. Worst thing you can do is just try to ignore it, avoid it, because that doesn't fix the situation. So when we talk about setting our mind in advance, we're talking about setting our mind in advance to do the right thing, to make the right choice, to do those things which are positive. But once again, notice it said, for the reason goal setting must be taught as a part of acceptance for this reason. If you remember on page 3, and this is something you'll want to take your students to, you're continually reminding them, because that's really how we learn, is through repetition. And if you remember back to the character unit with the VIP, the value, imitate, practice, that's how we do things, whether they be positive or negative. We're striving to do the positive and trying to alleviate the negative, to remove that from our lives. But when we do things over and over and over, we become better. We become more efficient at doing them. And remember, they can be either positive or negative. We're wanting to do the positive things. So going back to page 3 and rereading acceptance again, reaffirming this in their minds, solidifying it, so to speak. So when you say the word acceptance, they're painting a picture in their mind. And as teachers, that's what we truly want to do for our students. When we're speaking to them, we're wanting to paint pictures in their mind. We're wanting them to not only hear what we're saying, but we want them to see what they're saying in their own minds. And that can be a challenge for a teacher, because if you have 20 students in your classroom, you're painting 20 different pictures, and they can be very different according to the lives that those students actually have. They're very different lives they're going to encounter. Even if you have twins who live in the same household, their lives will be very different. And I speak from experience, having twins, very different personalities and very different attitudes, and even their likes and dislikes can be very different. So as a teacher, you're aware that you're trying to help them individualize themselves, but also bring in this, as is referred to as universal rules. Universal, when I say universal rules, I mean rules that are accepted all around the globe. No matter what country you live in, no matter what religion you might be, no matter what color of skin you have, these rules, these morals taught by the Peaceful Solution can be adapted into all society, and everyone can benefit from them. So going back here to page 3, and of course this was chapter 1 entitled Accepting Me, Accepting You, and it starts off by saying acceptance as presented in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program means to willingly acknowledge the positive characteristics about yourself and others. Acceptance means understanding that there are aspects of your life that you can and cannot change. And if you go all the way back to the very first part of the character unit, you can go back and reread of things that you can't change. Your eye color, you can't change that. The color of your skin. Well, we're kind of born with the color of skin, and that's the color we're supposed to have. If you're born white, if you're born black, if you're born a dark brown, yellow, purple, green, just think about how society, sometimes we kind of judge others by the color of their skin or by nationality. And these are things that should not be so. Accepting someone else, whether they be here in Texas, we see a lot of immigration coming through, whether they be Latino, or whether they're from Africa, whether they're from Europe. We have to realize that every life has value, but there's also rules to certain things. When I say immigration, that's a very complicated subject, but I'm talking about the life in general. The people in general, their lives are just as valuable as mine and everyone else's. And it doesn't matter where you're from. I know people are watching all around the globe right now. Everyone's life is just as valuable. And that's part of accepting. That's the acceptance we're talking about, the value and the things we can and can't change. You can't change what country you were born in. but you can change what country you live in. You can't change what state you were born in. I was born in North Carolina. I've lived in Texas for more than half of my life. And there's other things that are permanent fixtures in your life that you can't change. And one, you can't change who your parents are. The two people that came together to bring forth us as a child, you can't change that. But there are some things you can change. The way we conduct ourselves, the way we view things, the lack of knowledge that we might have concerning certain subjects. We can always change that by educating ourselves. Even the way things are viewed on a global scale, educating ourselves to find a better way to do things. And we've seen many examples of that throughout history. But continuing on here with some things you can change and some things you cannot, it says, in other words, some things you have control over and some things you don't. For example, we are all predisposed genetically towards certain physical characteristics. Our skin and hair are all predetermined by our family ancestry. Other things we have no control over are where we were born, who our parents are, and even when we were born. In other words, we have to accept whatever age we are. And that gets harder every year, I promise you. It never gets easier. You only want to be older until you start getting old, and then you don't want to be older anymore. But continuing on, it says, accepting yourself means realizing that you're a unique human being. You are your own individual. And there's some things we've covered thus far, and we'll get into more of that tonight, talking about conformity and what it means to conform and the influences that surround us. So just remember that we're unique individuals. And, there's some things said in the Peaceful Solution. One, for example, that in the process of trying to be like everyone else, you can really complicate issues and matters. It can really be detrimental to your life. And we're going to get into that and speak more about it, but we're going to pull some things out of the books tonight to help us to paint that picture in our minds. And it says your ability to make a difference in your life and the lives of others depends only on the amount of time and effort you put forth into your studies. It's the effort we put forth. And we say studies, and a lot of students will go, well, I don't really have to study everything in life. And when you think about it, when you get a job, they teach you how to do the job. You can't just walk into a job and no one instruct you. You have to be instructed how to do the job. Even if you've been doing a certain job for a fairly long time, there's still a different way different companies have of doing things, and everyone has their own protocol on how to do things. So even though we might be well skilled in how to do certain things, we still need to be instructed and guided, and we have to watch and learn. Studying's not always picking up a book and reading. Sometimes you have on-hand training and rehearsing that in your mind, replaying those things in your mind, sometimes taking notes down if you need to. All of that is part of studying. All of that is part of adding to our educational database. So don't always think of studying as reading a book. You can go to lectures and hear things. You can watch educational programs and learn things. Or you can actually do on-the-job training and learn things. That's all part of our studies that help us to broaden our knowledge database so we can take these things in and learn to help others, teach others. So continuing on here to LP 6, page C, so lesson plan 6, page C, we're going to start getting into the lesson here, remembering that we're going to be reaching for our goals, but we have to remember that we're building upon, there's a purpose to it all. And the first procedure of every lesson plan is to review the previous chapter, unless it's the first chapter, and then you'll be reviewing the previous unit. But here we're going to review some of the things that were covered in the previous chapter. Chapter 5, there's a purpose to it all. And here's the procedures. Well, let's start with our purpose and objective. Our purpose and objective, this is for the teacher. This is our goal that we're looking for. And it says students will learn how to set positive goals. Students will also learn that positive goals are important in building positive moral character. So they're going to learn how these two things tie hand in hand. It's really impossible to be a positive person and set goals that are negative. Because a positive person will shun, they'll walk away, they'll turn, they'll decide not to go do things that could cause harm to someone else. And I'll give you examples. One person said, well, what's something that's a goal that could be really desirable that's negative? I said, listen, I teach in places all the time, and so do other teachers, to where drug dealers are a very predominant thing. They make a lot of money very easily, but everything they do is harming other people through the production of drugs, through the selling of drugs, and through the business itself of drugs. We just heard of another shooting down in the southern part of Mexico that was a drug shooting. These things involve things that hurt other people. So there's a lot of money involved, and people think they can get rich very quickly, but the detriment that it brings to society far outweighs anything that could have ever been done to be beneficial with the money. So think about that as you continue to move through it, because you're going to have your students are going to bring forth some really great examples. That's one thing that students truly do, is when you have a class of 10, 15, 20, they will bring forth examples sometimes that you would have never thought of, and you'll learn from your students quite a bit because of their experiences. And sometimes 10, 12, 13, 14-year-olds can have a lot of experience in things that you could not even imagine. But of course, this is not only meant for young people. We teach this in prisons also, because we can see where it went wrong. All of us as adults can see when you're on a path to do something and then you get off in the negative way. It usually starts when we're children, young adults, and then we don't pull it back into the right path, and it just drifts farther and farther away. It can drift off at any time, though. At any age in our life, we can drift off to do things that are very negative. So here's the first procedure. It says, remind students that in the last lesson, there's a purpose to it all. They learned that life has meaning, and that having a purpose gives them a positive direction in which to grow and mature. Now we're going to ask students the following questions. And of course, you're wanting to pull forth from not just opinions, which you're going to get those, and once again, these things are needed. Conversation is needed. It's a very interactive course, The Peaceful Solution. But you really want to see what they can go back and find. Just challenge them. Find some things, and there'll be different parts of Chapter 5 they will be able to find and connect the pieces together. And that's really what you're looking for. So you're looking more than just feedback of people saying anything or just making a comment. You really want you want to see them take their book and start turning back and seeing what they can find. And hopefully their books are marked up. There's notes everywhere, because that's truly when you're helping connect the dots, when they're putting these notes in and they can go back and forth with what they have. But the first question we're going to ask is, how can conforming to negative standards affect your purpose in life? Now, of course, the answer the teacher is looking for, we have it here for the teacher in parentheses. It says, conforming to negative standards can lead you to make poor choices. Well, you want to challenge your students and ask them, what can they find? So let's turn back over here fairly quickly. And here in Chapter 6, we want to turn over to Chapter 5. We want to turn over to let's turn over to page 91 first, and we'll read that. When you look here, it's where there is meaning, there is purpose. And this was getting our mindsets to determining what our purpose in life is. But right now we're talking about the things that are negative and the things that can hold us back from the positive. So this is one thing. The day-to-day grind is something that we all go through, and it can be very stressful, to say the least, to all of us. When we think something is stressful to us, we have to remember, if it stresses us and if it causes us to have undesirable situations throughout the day, anybody can go through those same things. So remember, where there is meaning, there is purpose. Let's start here at the very top, and it says, another important aspect of accepting that your life has meaning is to determine what your purpose is, or what your purpose in life is. A lot of people never figure that out. A lot of people you can be an adult and still trying to figure out what your purpose in life is. Now, notice here it says everyone's life has purpose. Yes, everyone. The problem is that people sometimes get caught up in the daily grind or the day-to-day grind. In other words, they begin to see their daily activities and functions as routine, boring, and monotonous. They fail to realize that their interactions are helpful. they might become disappointed and frustrated and tend to have a life is boring. I deserve to have some fun. I deserve to have some fun. Besides, I don't have much of a future, so I might as well live for the moment attitude. Well, when you get this attitude, that's when it starts leading to negative choices, because the rules that will govern your direction, that takes a lot of hard work to do things and achieve things according to the rules. Why does it take so much hard work? Because everybody wants the here and now. Everybody wants to set goals, but they want the end result immediately. You know, years ago, if you've never taken the time to fix coffee on a wood stove, you should try that if you have a wood stove. If you've ever had to cook food over an open fire, and you have to gather the wood, prepare the fire, get the food ready, prepare the food, then cook it, you know, you should try that. Because it wasn't just 110 years ago. Even 80 years ago, people were still doing this in the time of the Dust Bowl, where this was life. People traveled by wagon, horse and wagon, you know, buggies. That's how they traveled. And today we stand in front of the microwave and yell, hurry up. And society has changed drastically. We always want the end result, but we want it yesterday. That's where fast food came from. It became so popular because you're supposed to be able to pull up, drive in, get your food, and drive off. You're done. Doesn't mean it's very healthy, but it's fast. And that's what society desires right now. But this fast pace, we set unrealistic goals, as we'll get into, for ourselves. When we want everything to be fast-paced, well, we have to put ourselves into that fast-paced society. And we'll find that we're not getting things done the way we need to get them done, or we'll fall short. We'll cut corners. We'll do things that aren't proper. But it's because we want to live life in the moment sometimes, and, well, I deserve to have some time to myself. Well, we all do, and that's something that each and every one of us should have, is some time to ourselves to reflect on how things go, how the day's going, and how we're proceeding in life as a person. That's very important to life. But notice here, continuing on, it says, without purpose, these people are more susceptible to taking unnecessary risks that could lead to experimentation with drugs, alcohol, and premarital sex, putting themselves in danger of deadly sexually transmitted diseases. And, you know, this doesn't come just from the act itself. I had a very close friend at one time who I haven't seen in many years, but through drug addiction, it led to him getting hepatitis. And, you know, he had a very hard time, and I'm not even for sure if the person's still alive now or not, but I remember him telling me that he was sitting in a big city on the street. He hadn't done drugs in a long time, and someone come up and asked him if he wanted to take a hit, and of course it was a needle. And he said he asked the person, do you have any diseases? Well, someone who's high on drug is probably not the most educated person to ask, are you okay? Well, no, they're not okay. They're doing drugs. Okay, they're high. But they took their word for it, injected themselves, just to find out later they contracted hepatitis from that one situation. And there were probably many situations in that person's life that could have led to that. But, you know, you really realize that your whole life, no matter how long or how short it is, just a few seconds can change so much in your life, and it can affect the goals that you want to achieve, and it can really take you off the path of your purpose that you really have in life. It can really take away the goal and the potential that a person had that they could have fulfilled, because sickness and disease can reduce the ability of what we can do. Well, notice here it says, keep in mind that your life, like everyone else's, is meaningful and has purpose, but it's up to you to determine your purpose. That's up to you. And you do that through education, through getting yourself educated, and through learning what is important and what is beneficial. And then, of course, turning over here to page 95, we see here that friends, conformity, and purpose. Friends, conformity, and purpose. And remember, friends, that's where you have things such as peer pressure and influence. They come from that. Conformity, remember, we use the example of when you put a sock on your foot, how the sock can be really flat, but when you put it on your foot, it takes shape, and it takes the shape of your foot and it conforms to the shape of your foot. Well, we're talking about our characters conforming to the character, whether positive or negative. Right now we're speaking about negative, how it can adjust to the negative things your friends are doing. And of course, purpose can be very confused once that takes place. But here on page 95, notice it says, once you have identified your purpose in life, don't stop there. You must also be focused on achieving it. This means being careful of how you spend your time alone or with friends, as well as being aware of what you conform to. That's the influences that are around you. Notice it says, without focus and determination, you can lose sight of the positive things you want in life. And once you lose sight of the positive things that you desired, the goals that you set, and the purpose that you see in your life to do it, once you lose sight of it, it's like walking through the dark and you're grasping for the light switch. If you've ever walked through your house, and I know I've walked through certain areas that I deal with every time, even my own business, I can walk through it in the dark and I find something new every time. I could have swore that was an open walkway, but it's not today. And that's what it's like when you lose sight. You think you remember, and I could walk through here with my eyes closed. I can figure it out. I know this like the back of my hand. And then you look down and it's like, where'd that come from? Well, something new every day. But once you lose sight of it, it's truly like running through the dark and people are putting obstacles in your way because you truly don't know what lies ahead because you're wanting to live life in the moment. Well, continuing on, it says, think for a moment about what you spend your free time doing. Consider what it is you're doing. Is it helping you to achieve your purpose? Is it helping you to move forward with your goals? Is it giving you the direction that you need to keep the sight of what you once set your mind to do? Looking over here to page 96, and we're going to look at the second paragraph. And it says, the need to please friends is certainly one of the most powerful reasons why people conform. For example, how you spend your time when you are with your friends. Let me ask that in a question. How do you spend your time when you're with your friends? And that's a question that we pose to the students to begin with, and you want to be careful about the replies you get back. You got to be mindful. You'll learn things that you never dreamed of was taking place with your students. Well, it says here that studies indicate that a popular pastime for adolescents between the ages of 12 to 15 is hanging out at the mall. Now, that is definitely a pastime. It's hanging out at the mall if you can find a mall to hang out at these days. Or talking, talking and, of course, hanging out at the mall, talking and laughing as people walk by. And a lot of times, sadly, they're making fun of people, not building people up, but being derogatory. Many of the teens surveyed said that they would not feel comfortable doing this if they were by themselves. But with friends, they set aside their sense of right from wrong because everybody else is doing it. When someone tells you everybody else is doing it, not everybody else is going to jail. Not everybody else is dying in car wrecks or causing a car wreck due to alcoholic intoxication. Not everyone, as we've seen here in the news the other day, where a football player who had his goals set on making lots of money and playing professional football lost everything by driving intoxicated at 156 miles an hour and hitting a lady from behind, and she burned to death inside of her own car. Now, he survived, but I tell you, I would not want to be in his shoes. I can only imagine the enormous regret that he has, not because now he's lost his ability to play football, not because he's lost his job, not because he's lost his money, not because he's facing many years in prison, but just knowing that his choice led to someone losing their life. That in itself can be a burden that no one wants to carry. But once again, this wanting to do what everybody else is doing, because everybody's doing it, right? Well, no, not everybody else is doing negative things. Well, going back here to LP6C, we want to go to the second question, and this is rehearsing what was covered before. And it's how can developing a positive character help to achieve your purpose? Now, this is a question, and keep in mind, that's a very individualized question. When you say your purpose, you can say that to the classroom, but as many students as you have, that's as many different purposes, goals, intentions, lives, the ability that is offered to them to be able to do certain things. So when you ask that question, this requires take time to listen, because everyone is going to speak from their experiences and the direction and they want to go, and let as many people be heard as possible. This is not something that you want to rush through, because once again, our goal is to get across to the students on how to learn positive goals and how they're important to positive moral character. So putting these things together is very important. But here in parentheses, this is what, as Peaceful Solution instructors, we're wanting to get the feedback of from the students. And it says that a person with a positive moral character will be self-disciplined, resourceful, and seek advice from those who are trustworthy, honest, and responsible in order to achieve their purpose. And of course, we can turn back over to pages 92 and 93. Pages 92 and 93, and this is something you can take time in pulling out certain aspects of these pages. And of course, this is covering determining your purpose. Then at the very beginning of page 92, it says, many people wonder at some point in their lives what their future holds for them. And I think everybody goes through that. You wonder, well, I wonder, will I be able to drive? Well, what will I drive? You know, especially when you're 15 and you can feel the stern wheel coming to your hands. You can feel the gas pedal starting to get underneath your feet. These things become more realistic to you. They become real to you. So the desire and the thought process is put that way a lot more because it's just so close you can taste it, for example. But it says, if you too have ever wondered who you are and what your purpose is, then join the crowd. Were you meant to play a significant role in world events, to set new records, to be the inventor of technology that could revolutionize the world? Well, time, education, and determination can answer those questions. Meanwhile, understanding that having purpose in life does not necessarily mean changing world events or becoming rich or famous. Do not confuse purpose in life with having a prestigious career, wealth, or fame. The majority of people in the world are not famous or wealthy. So in their positive goals that they're talking about, the reason we read this is expectation. You could have someone say, my goal in life is I just want to graduate high school, have a job, and start a family. Very simplistic. But if that's your goals and that's what you want to achieve in life, and you do it, you've succeeded. Not everybody wants to own a business. Not everybody wants to work for a company. So there's many people, and it takes all of these people in society to make society operate. Looking over here to page 93, and look at the second paragraph. Notice it says, by making use of what is offered in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, that's the tools, the techniques that we're given, you will not only have the knowledge, that means the power, you have the power to do it, but you will gain the wisdom to use your knowledge for the betterment of all mankind. And that's even if something is as simplistic as, I just want to have a family, have a job. You know, a house with a white picket fence in the front. That's what everybody used to say years ago. Some people want to live in the country. Some people want to live in the city. But whatever your purpose and goals that you desire, you just want to work forward and move forward in life by doing it in a positive way and achieving those things in a positive way. If you make bad decisions along the way, you want to quickly fix them. We can all make bad choices. Everybody has made bad choices. I can promise you that. There's not one person in life you'll ever meet that has never made a bad choice. What determines that person's character is what they did to fix it, what they did to improve themselves and to fix the detrimental things that the choice would have brought in society around them. Some things can be very devastating and can be irreplaceable, like the loss of life we spoke about from the football player. Even though he can regret it, and it can thoroughly make him hurt from inside out, there's not a thing he can do to change that. His actions have already set something. There's already been a reaction to his action, and now there's going to be reactions to that action that took place. But continuing on here, it says your experiences, influences, abilities, and interest and character all help you to determine your purpose in life. And then looking over to page 94, the second paragraph, and this section was entitled Just So You Know. And the second paragraph said, just by speaking with one person about a subject, the whole focus of your life can change. So you must be careful who you get advice from, and not be too quick to obligate yourself until you get all the facts. And remember, that's the first positive character trait we learned about in the Peaceful Solution, was becoming educated, getting all the facts. It says you can get advice from those who are trustworthy, honest, and responsible for their actions. In other words, they have positive moral character, and they set and achieve positive goals. Be smart and consider how your influences can impact your future. So you want to consider that before the negativity arises in your life. And it's possible, getting caught in situations where you do something that's negative, that's part of learning. But what we really want to do is limit the devastation that our negative choices can make. We can honestly make mistakes and do things that can set someone back. There was the other day, a teacher, myself and another teacher, we have identical headsets, and we teach a lot of classes on Skype. And somehow our identical headsets, which are in the same room, he left them from someone to borrow, and then they ended up on my desk. Well, I came in to teach class at 4 a.m. in the morning overseas, and I see the headset. I pick them up, and I look at the cable, and I think, I don't remember doing my cable like this. This is very neat. The way it was done was like, that's just not me. My cable just kind of hangs loose. But I thought, I guess somewhere down the line, I thought it was necessary, and I did it. And I used the headset, and after class, I put them down. And then that teacher called me later, and they said, hey, we have the same identical headset. Oh, yeah, I know. Can you check to see if someone possibly put my headset at your desk because mine are missing? And I went to look, and lo and behold, his had electrical tape around them, and, well, that was the headsets that I used that morning. Mine was still in the filing cabinet where I put them. So if I would have reminded myself, well, I didn't leave them on my desk, I put them in the filing cabinet. That would have helped a lot, but, those are things where you do that's honest mistakes. Someone mistakenly put them on my desk, and I, at 4 a.m. in the morning, headsets on my head was success. Getting in front of a computer was another one. But that person taught right after me, so I caused a situation for them to where here they're trying to teach class without their headset, so they had to find one because they were teaching a 4:30 a.m. class. So that's kind of challenging at that early in the morning. But these are things where mistakes were made. We all kind of participated in them. Except the person who let someone borrow them, he was just expecting them back. But it kind of led to, it kind of builds up as it goes downhill, so to speak, and the avalanche increases. But at least we were able to solve the problem. Well, that's minor. That's a very minor thing as compared to the loss of life or doing something that has a huge mental effect or physical effect on someone else. Well, getting back here to the lesson plan 6, page C, we're going to look at the second procedure. And it says, explain to students that in this lesson, they will see that learning to set goals enhances a person's value and worth. So it actually builds up their value and worth. And we're just going to turn back for a quick moment here, but remind them to go back to page 88 and reread that, look over it. If you have time in your class, go back and go through some of these things. It's entitled, Helping Others Equals Value and Worth. So that's very important to remind them of how these things going together actually help you to determine, your value and the worth you have to your community or to society. I want to read to you at the very bottom, though. This is a very important part of this. At the bottom of page 88, it says there are countless ways you can assist others in your community. However, it is up to you to educate yourself about the relevant issues in your area. Ask your parents for permission to get involved. Then ask your teachers or principal, as well as other community leaders, about ways that people your age can be of assistance. So you don't want to go outside and think, wow, that road needs a ditch beside of it. I think I'll dig a ditch. And you end up digging a hole about 6 foot deep and you leave it. That's not beneficial. Get with those who, in your communities, in your schools, wherever you're at, and find out what is needed, because every community, every place that is an entity within itself has to set goals for itself. Your school will have goals, your place of work will have goals, your community will have goals, and even your own household will have goals. I learned very quickly when I was growing up, my dad's goal was, when he mowed the yard, was to mow the complete yard. Well, my goal was to mow it until I got bored with it, and that was half the yard. Well, that didn't work out very well once he seen that I only mowed half the yard. And he very quickly taught me how to mow the whole yard, and he took the riding lawnmower away and gave me the push lawnmower. So I learned very quickly, if you're using a riding lawnmower, mow the whole thing. Otherwise, you're going to use a push lawnmower to finish the job. But he was able to show us in ways that, he was able to educate us in ways that were beneficial, to where we've seen the value and the worth of doing the whole job, doing it complete, and how when you don't do it right, you can actually lose the things that made it easier. And of course, when I was young, I was thinking, oh, now I got to push this lawnmower. Don't they make one that pushes itself? And I just walk behind it. And even though years ago they didn't mow grass like that, but I'm complaining over something with an engine that turns a blade. Well, later in life, you learn as you get older, because in life, as you get older, students become teachers. And I've heard people say that, well, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. If you're going to be a parent, you're going to be a teacher. There's no way to get out of that. You're stuck in that. You're going to have this young, small life, whether a boy or a girl, and you're going to have to guide it. And if you don't, well, that's the first failure that child has in its life, is it didn't have a teacher. It didn't have a guide or instructor. That doesn't mean people can't turn out to do positive things and set positive goals to benefit society in a way that is beneficial to all. But these goals are very important, that they're achieved in unity with the values that have been set by the household, the community, whatever place you're doing it for. You want to make sure you're doing it within the rules they've set. So once again, going back here to procedure 2, it says, explain to students that the word goal means an end to that one strives to attain. So it's the end of something that you strive to attain. Success in meeting their goals will enable them to achieve their purpose in life. Guide class discussion by asking the following questions. Now, the first question you're going to ask the classroom is, how many of you have ever wanted to be on a team or in the band and practiced, tried out, and made it? And you'll have a lot of people that raise their hands, but you'll have a lot of people that try out and they don't make it. I remember being in school when we tried out to play basketball, like 60 people showed up, but you could only have 15 players. There were a lot of disappointed people that didn't make the team. So the school would try to create a community basketball league for those that didn't make it, and then they would allow everyone to not suffer the disappointment of what they were going through. So they tried to create an atmosphere to where if you didn't make this, you can still have this. But that doesn't always work in society. There's a lot of people that will put their resume in for a job. There's a lot of people that might want to be school president or class president. They might want to have certain positions in a school that are held by students, but only 1 or 2 can have them. And they can work really hard for them, but that doesn't mean they'll get them. And that's something that we've talked about accepting, when things don't go as we think they should, or they fall short of what we expected. We'll get into the realistic goals that we have to set, because sometimes our goals, part of setting our goals, have to be met with understanding there could be disappointment, because sometimes we're not in control of achieving our goals, such as running for president of the United States. There's people that will vote you or not vote for you to be in that office. And there's other things in life that are similar that we'll get to as we proceed through this lesson. So once again, success in meeting their goals will enable them to achieve their purpose in life. Now we want to guide that class discussion. They raised their hands about being on a team, practice band, and allow them to give feedback, because that's what a class discussion is. You have to be mindful not to drag the whole class out, but try to guide the class into pointing toward, if they mention failure, show them where success can be attained, because that's really what we want to do, because people that feel they've failed sometimes don't see that they can actually make a difference, that things can be different. They think that, well, I didn't make it and I'll always be someone that doesn't get to achieve what they want. Well, that's not true. You might not be able to play basketball or football or band. I've always wanted to play the guitar, but I've never wanted to take the time that it takes to learn to do it. I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice, and I've always wanted to be able to sit down and just do it. But that is not the way it works. And if that was the way it worked, then I probably wouldn't even desire it, because, it's just something that I've always been amazed at seeing. But that's just something that you have to, when we set our goals, we also have to realize you only have so much time in a day, and you have to prioritize the things you want to accomplish and the things you can accomplish. Now, B here is the next question, and this is our class discussion. It says, how many of you have ever wanted to buy something, earned the money, and then bought it? And that can be a lot of students, especially when you're in junior high. Raking leaves was something that was big. For me growing up, mowing lawns was also big growing up, where we would achieve finances. We could get money, make money. And of course, back when I was young, when I seen a $20 bill, I thought I was rich. I remember mowing yards and getting paid $2 for mowing the yards, and as long as I could buy a candy bar and a soft drink, I thought that was success. That's all I wanted. And I was very glad that I was put into an environment to where if you want it, you need to learn to work for it. That's how life is. Learn to work for things. Don't expect people to give you things, but help achieve things. And that's something that I've found as I've grown in life, and even going through my teenage years and in my 20s, I found out that there was even a greater aspect when getting involved with the Peaceful Solution and the author Yisrael Hawkins, along with many other teachers, that you can even go much further in detail by learning how to do things and taking the necessary steps to achieve, to help people all around the world. Well, in moving with that and getting the class discussion going and the feedback from them, we want to direct everything towards this building and achieving these positive goals. Turning over to LP6D, it says, tell students that when they set their mind on something, that's setting their mind in advance, they want to do, and then take the necessary steps to achieve it, they have demonstrated a basic understanding of how to set and achieve goals. Very important, the word necessary steps to achieve it. You can desire something when you go into a store. And as a child, I remember going into a store, and I remember I would always go over to the sports section and stare at the basketballs and the footballs. And I would just stare at them, and I knew I wanted one, and I really wanted to get one. And the instructions that I was given, well, you need to work to buy it. If you want it, work and then buy it. Which I really appreciate that now that those things were given to me. As far as the teaching of work to buy. But I remember standing there and wanting and saving at $2 and $2 and $3 for mowing yards, and then I finally achieved enough. But the one thing I learned very quickly was, I want a basketball, but I also want to spend my money on a candy bar and a soda. Well, I learned very quickly, if I want my basketball, I have to quit spending my money on candy bars and soda. You just can't have the money if you're spending the money. You have to save money. And through that very basic thing, it taught me how to, if I want something, stick back a little bit at a time, enjoy what you have, but save also. And then you can actually, through working hard, and it takes a little bit of time, you can achieve what you want. But once again, we're the kind of society that stands in front of the microwave and yells, hurry up, I want it now. And you have that attitude that leads to going in and stealing things or taking things from other people. Whether you see a bicycle in your community and you would like to have one like it, instead of working to buy one, you steal it. That's something that, you're always going to have it in the back of your mind that you did something wrong. You're always going to be worried that someone's going to know that you did it, and there's no satisfaction in doing something that's inappropriate. Continuing on here to procedure 3, it says explain that whether or not they are aware of it, goals are part of their daily lives. Sometimes goals are set without any conscious effort and therefore might not be recognized as goals. Share with the students that when they were younger, they were setting and accomplishing goals before they even realized what they were doing. Examples include learning how to tie their shoelaces, ride a bike, write their name, or read. Tell students that as they mature and their needs become more complex, they will need to learn how to consciously set goals in order to achieve success. So they're going to learn, whether you know it or not, you're already achieving goals. You've been achieving goals. Now we're going to talk about how you're going to consciously start setting, putting them on paper. And we'll get into how writing them down. People who accomplish goals write them down. But they'll learn how to consciously recognize something and then set a plan to achieve it. Because there's some things, we don't really think about a goal of learning to walk when we're young. If you're someone that suffered a disability, or you've been involved in an accident, or you've had to have knee surgery, something that's been a very devastating effect on your life to where you could not walk for a while, then of course as an adult or a young person, learning to walk again can be a goal. But as a child, we kind of develop that ability without thinking about it. It's just we expect it. We expect it to be part of life. So once again, continuing on, it says, as we've told students, as they mature, life will be more complex. But it says, have students turn to page 109 in their handbook and read the introduction. Remind students that making goals, like determining their purpose, can be based on influences. Remember the definition for that. You can look back to page 60 of the character unit, because we were told two things. One, an influence has the ability to change the way you think, feel, and act. And that can be either positive or negative. And we were also told to never underestimate the power or the ability that an influence can have on our lives, because it truly can affect our lives. And once again, as the example I gave earlier of someone who contracted hepatitis from using a needle of someone else who had the disease, these things, just a few seconds, 30 seconds, can alter our lives in such a devastating and traumatic way. It can limit our abilities to really achieve what we desire to do. And it can be a huge setback. And sometimes it can be such a setback that our goal that we wanted to achieve has to be reduced to something less because we no longer have the ability to achieve it. And that can be very devastating, to know that you could have done something, but through some bad choices, you can't get what you first wanted, but you're going to have to settle for something less. But at least it's something, and there's always something. But reach for the stars, as they say. Reach for the greatest thing you can achieve. And that doesn't mean that you have to, design the next rocket going into space. Just success in your life and success in others. Whenever you can be a benefit to others, as a peaceful solution instructor, our goals are always to learn how to make our lives better and then help everyone else make a difference in their life, make a better choice in their life. And you learn very quickly. It doesn't mean you're knowing it all, because you never know it all. There's still a lot of mistakes and choices that are made that we have to go back and fix and do things to make them right. But we want to limit the negative and learn how to make our lives better, and then in doing so, teach others how to make theirs better. But we have to learn how to do that first. So once again, we're going to turn to the introduction. Remind students that making goals like determining their purpose can be based on influences, likes and dislikes, and needs. Hence, goals can be individualized as people who make them. Have students also turn to page 110 in their handbooks and read, then discuss the section entitled Be a Goal Setter. Allow students time to write some areas of interest, their likes and dislikes, on the lines, and ask a few volunteers to share what they wrote. So we're going to turn over here to page 109, and we're going to get started in this. Once again, very important to take what we've learned about there's a purpose to it all and put that together with reaching for your goals. And it says, in order to determine your purpose in life, you need to be a goal setter. And that's in the very top part of the thought cloud from the Peaceful Solution. And it's something to help get our mind set to what we're going to do. So chapter 6, reaching for your goals, the introduction. Did you know that you have been achieving goals since birth? And that's something you want to question to your students and ask them, do you know that? See if they give you an answer. They might, if they've read ahead, they're going to have it, or they might even have an idea of what you're trying to tell them. And it says a goal is an end that you strive to attain. Walking, talking, attending school for the first time, even learning how to ride a bike are all goals that you have already accomplished. And that's if you've had a bike and you desired to. But there's other things that go with that, as we'll get into this, on how when you accomplish a goal, well, that goal leads to another goal. And that goal leads to another goal. And it's just like character education. You build and you build and you build. If you want to ride a bike, learning how to walk would be helpful. Doesn't mean it's necessary. I know people that can't walk and their bikes are made for them. Talking, if you want to learn to teach, if you want to learn to communicate, talking is a very important aspect of communication. It's not the only aspect. People communicate with sign language on a daily basis. And attending school for the first time. Here in society today, there's a lot of homeschooling. I know of children that have went all the way through and graduated and have never stepped foot into a school like I did. I went to public school. But homeschooling has become a huge part of society today, with the coronavirus being a very large part of how we conduct ourselves and things we do or don't do. But the goal is to get an education. That's what the goal is. Well, once again, as you grow, there are goals that you will automatically achieve simply by moving from one developmental stage to the next. The developmental stage from infancy to childhood, from adolescent to adulthood, are times of incredible physical, mental, and cognitive, that's the way you think, your growth. You reach these milestones without being aware of it. And just so you have this cognitive thought, it's meaning relating to logic, thought, awareness, and mental process. And as we get older, our process and knowledge and experience and examples and all of those things that we see, we're able to take hold of, and we're able to implement them into our lives. It's kind of like when you get your driver's license. Before they give them to you, you have to go through a lot of classes so you can identify, I've been going down the road as a passenger for years. Well, it's very different in riding in the passenger seat and actually driving the vehicle itself. And whenever you drive, you get used to the way it's done in your state. I can tell you, coming from North Carolina, traffic lights and things are very different in the state of Texas than they were in North Carolina. And then traveling to countries like Jamaica, where we went to teach, things are vastly different. You switch the side of the road. Driver's side is what we say the passenger side. It goes to more of a European standard, going to different countries. But you still have to follow the rules. You can't say, well, I'm from America, so I'm driving on this side of the road. It doesn't work that way. Your goal is to do things within the rules and accomplish them. Now, continuing on, it says, however, there is a vast difference between goals you have accomplished because you have reached certain developmental stages and goals that you consciously set and strive to attain. Learning to consciously set and achieve positive moral goals is an important part of growing up. So this is all part of becoming an adult. It shows that you are maturing, that you have self-control, and that you are responsible and disciplined. It is also one more step in achieving a positive moral character and accepting yourself as a worthwhile human being. You actually see for yourself that you're able to set something. You identified your purpose, you've set a goal, and now you achieve it. And very quickly, let's just cover something that would be very basic, that would be goal setting and how you can build upon it. Let's say you want to buy a bicycle. Well, you set a goal of delivering newspapers, which that is a thing of the past, I think. I know of communities that still do that, or mowing grass, raking leaves, doing something to generate income that's done in a positive way, not stealing, not doing things that bring harm, but doing something in a positive way. And then you buy your bicycle. Well, then you have to learn to ride your bicycle. And then after you learn to ride your bicycle, you really are going to have to learn to maintain your bicycle. And a lot of people think that success stops at buying the bicycle until it breaks. Well, you have to learn to maintain it also. And why is this so important? Because it's the same process when you buy a car. You see a car you want, or a truck, or whatever vehicle you're looking to do as you get older, well, you buy it. That's not the ending point. That's the beginning point. You learn to drive it. Every car is a little different. And then you learn to maintain it, or how to have it maintained. You can't buy a car and decide, I'll change the oil right before I sell it. If that's 10 years, then that's okay. It doesn't work that way. There's rules in life, and there's goals that we have to keep. And if you're bad at maintaining something, one of your goals should be to set a standard and make sure that you adhere to maintaining those things. That's the same thing as our character, making sure we maintain our character also. We're going to stop at this point right here because the next part gets into the lesson and how we're going to proceed through it. And we're going to do a little bit of recovering this and when we continue on in our next class. So we're going to stop here on page 109, and we'll pick up in the last paragraph in our next class. That will be 11:10. So it'll be this Wednesday at 5:30. And if you'll tune back in, we'll really start to move forward into reaching our goals and becoming a goal setter, and then actually having some activities that the students will do, going over and covering those and how we can accomplish them. So once again, we'll be on page 109 in the acceptance unit this Wednesday, 5:30, November the 10th. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you then.